Today is 5785, but it is also 5784, Simchat Torah, October 7th. It's been a year and so much has occurred, and at the same time we are forever in that terrible day of October 7th. I don't know any other way to move forward than to talk about what this year has wrought on all of us. And I don't know how to do it in a way as clarifying as through the words of the prophet of this year, Rachel Goldberg Polin. Her presence, her clarion call to humanity, her raw emotion, her religious values, her ability to speak across every border and boundary held and pushed so many of us this year to do more, to be more, to feel, to cry, to demand more from our leaders. This sermon is an homage to Rachel, told in 3 parts. My hope is that these 3 parts, part 1, gratitude, part 2, a ritual for pain, and part 3, unrealized redemption, can help us, even in this awful moment, to find wells of life and strength we didn't know we possessed, whether about this conflict or, quite frankly, any other part of our lives. Part 1, gratitude. She stood up, slight, maybe 5 foot tall, but fierce in stature, tortured, broken, exhausted. The masking tape that we have come to know these last 11 months, where she counted each day with a black Sharpie placed over her heart, and now accompanied by a tear down the front of her white cotton shirt. Her son, her only son, whom she loved fiercely, and for whom she fought fiercely for 11 months, to be returned home, had been brutally murdered in a tunnel in Gaza. The world was watching and listening to her, as we had been doing for the past 11 months since October 7th, because we now knew that a prophet named Rachel Goldberg Polin was among us. Day 332, the eulogy. Here is how it started. I have had a lot of time during these past 332 days to think about my sweet boy Hirsch. And one thing I keep thinking about is how, out of all the mothers in the whole entire world, God chose to give Hirsch to me. What must I have done in this past life to deserve such a beautiful gift? It must have been glorious. I am honest, she said, and I say it's not that Hirsch was perfect, but he was the perfect son for me. And I am so grateful to God, and I want to do Hakarat Tov and thank God right now in front of all of you for giving me this magnificent present of my Hirsch. For 23 years, I was privileged to have the most stunning honor to be Hirsch's mama. I'll take it and say thank you. I sat in tears, stunned. Whatever she would have opened with, we would have received. Fury, rage, heartbreak, but no. Having been tortured for 11 brutal months, 47 intolerable weeks, 329 unrelenting days, 478,080 torturous minutes, and she opened her eulogy with gratitude to God for gifting her Hirsch as her child. To turn to gratitude under such torturous pain was stunning. To have birthed a child into the world, raised him intentionally to love, to give, to explore, and to have him taken so violently, first from his homeland and then from this earth, and to turn to gratitude for the gift of life. That is the embodiment of what for most of us will only ever be a religious aspiration. I don't mean to suggest that when terrible things happen, we should not feel a whole range of emotions. I'm quite sure that along with the gratitude Rachel expressed, she stood there with shock and rage, eternal sadness, and the feeling that this death never should have happened. But in the midst of all that, she was able to identify gratitude, and it was how Rachel decided to begin this eulogy. And there is something profound about approaching life in that way. She was a teacher, once again, for all of us, not because she wanted to, but because the moment required it of her. She taught that no matter the circumstances of Hirsch's death, no one was going to take away her ability to feel everlasting gratitude for him, or to stop her from celebrating the wonderful human that was Hirsch. In the 4th chapter of Pirkei Avot, Ben Zoma teaches, Ezehu Ashir, who is rich? She who is happy with her lot. Rabbi Tamar Elad Applebaum, if you don't know her, please look her up after Rosh Hashanah. She suggests that this teaching that begins the 4th chapter of Avot is like a prayer, an aspiration, and pushes on each one of us to strive for personal growth. Who is rich? The one who teaches herself to be satisfied with what she has been given. What could our lives look like if we could stop regularly and give hakarat tov, gratitude, for the gift of our lives, even in the darkest, most torturous moments, for being here, for loving, for feeling, so connected to the world that the pain of loss will feel at moments unbearable? What might happen to our individual and collective dispositions if we truly lived with gratitude? Gratitude is not an answer to grief. It won't quell grief. It's not a disposition that one chooses to cultivate to meet the world while being it is a disposition that one chooses to cultivate to meet the world while being very aware of mortality and the inability to always control what happens to us. It doesn't deny humanity's cruelty or trauma, but it is a wellspring that can live alongside dark truths. Part 2, a ritual for pain. Day 18, Rachel's words. Here I live in a different universe than all of you. You are all right there. We seem like we live in the same place, but I, like all the mothers and all the fathers and the wives and the husbands and the children and the brothers and the sisters and the loved ones of the stolen, we all actually live on a different planet. And the very cruelest of questions that each of us is asked every single day without intended malice is, how are you? Well, picture your own mother, and then picture her being told there are only 2 options. You are either dead, or you have your arm blown off, and you are kidnapped by gunpoint into Gaza, and no one knows where you are, or if you bled to death in that pickup truck 18 days ago, or if you died yesterday or 5 minutes ago. That is my answer to you. That is how all of us here on our planet feel, this planet of beyond pain, our planet of no sleep, our planet of despair, our planet of tears. Most of us, thank God, we will never know the pain and the wrenching anguish of Rachel and John, and Yehuda is with us today. His son Nimrod is still in a tunnel under Gaza. He will speak to us in a bit. And yet, all the way across the world, across a gulf of pain, we all held on to hope. Through Hirsch's 329 days in captivity, so many of us wrote to the White House, spoke with officials in the administration, pushed for a deal, marched, protested outside the Red Cross, prayed, cried, even ordered drinks at Starbucks using the name Hirsch, so his name would be called out and not forgotten, so that the piercing pain of Rachel and John would not be forgotten. The pain of all the hostage families that still wait, it's unbearable. And yet, This is the world we are living in. This year was unbearable. The brutality of October 7th, the murder of 1,200 people in Israel, the brutal nature of these murders, children, pregnant women, the rape and ravaging of bodies and homes, peace lovers at the Nova Festival murdered, mutilated, and carried off to Gaza, and then a country at war. And the waiting, the endless waiting to not know whether a family member who was missing was taken as a hostage or murdered. The revelation of deaths through the discovery of body parts, re-traumatization sometimes daily, and the funerals. I will never forget the images of 5 bodies lined up for burial, wrapped in the flag of Israel, an entire family. Aviv, Livnat, Rotem, Yonatan, and Yiftach Kotz of Kfar Aza, who were found huddled on a bed in their home, where terrorists murdered them. The violence was almost too severe to even believe until the pictures, the testimonies, the videos, the eyewitness accounts told us that a modern pogrom on Israel's soil had befallen our people. Across the world this year, anti-Semitism was unleashed from college campus protests that targeted Jewish students, not only with words, but with violence, to increase incidents of anti-Semitism across the world, physical assault, vandalism, and verbal assault, all the while the war raged on. Over 40,000 Palestinians dead, children buried in rubble, hospitals overfull with no equipment and no medicine, near famine for children and families in Gaza, and that Palestinian father I will never forget, Muhammad Abu al-Qumsan, who, while on his way to register his newborn twins' births, an Israeli strike killed them both, as well as his wife and mother-in-law. The 33-year-old new father had just left Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Bal, central Gaza, when he received a call telling him to return the hospital. He lost his entire world. Sometimes you can say, it's too much. This year has been too much. The pain is more than we can hold. The suffering is greater than we could ever have imagined, and the war is not over. Maimonides teaches us that the shofar is a wake-up call. In the Mishnah, the Torah writes, Af al pi shetkiyat shofar b'Rosh Hashanah, gzerat hakatuv, remez yesh bo klomar, uru yushenim. Maimonides says, even though the blowing of the shofar is a biblical decree, it hints at something that calls to us. Wake up, sleepers, from your sleep, and slumberers, arise from your slumber. Search your ways and return in tshuva and remember your Creator. This year, for the first time in my life, this teaching doesn't work. We're already awake. We're on edge, and we're shaken to our course. This year, the shofar sounds more like wailing to me, a ritual that captures the utter sorrow and pain and unimaginable loss of this year. The rabbis of the 8th century knew pain like ours. In the Midrashic compilation Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, the rabbis teach that the shofar sound was likened to the wailing of Sarah after the Akedah. The story goes that when Abraham took Isaac up to Mount Moriah and almost sacrificed him, Satan came down and went to Sarah and told her that Abraham had indeed sacrificed her only son, the one she loved. Sarah began to weep and cry aloud 3 times, 3 howlings corresponding to the 3 disconnected short notes of the shofar, and her soul fled, and she died. This year, the sound of the shofar takes on new meaning. It is not only a biblical decree. It is not only the call to wake up. It is not only the cry of Sarah. It is the cry of Rachel Goldberg Poland. It is a cry of all the mothers and the fathers and the children and the grandparents and the uncles and the aunts and the Jews and the Palestinians everywhere for the deep pain we are feeling. This year, the shofar is us, a people wailing. The shofar is a representation of the wordless anguish that hovers over us and in us. Anguish that we cannot turn away from. Anguish that we cannot close from our ears or our hearts. But it is also our teacher. That ancient sound, the sound of the shofar, is a reminder of the ram in the thicket that took the place of the sacrifice of Isaac, the ram that was a different way. What if this year the shofar is a call to us from thousands of years ago, asking us to find another way forward, to end the sacrificing of our children and to cling to life? Part 3, unfulfilled redemption. Every week, I get up in front of this congregation, as do Aaron and Sarah, and we say to you right before Mi Chamocha, this is the prayer, this is tefillah that we sing every day of the week, and it is about redemption. We remember the great redemption of our people from Egypt. When the people were running out of Egypt and Pharaoh's army was chasing them from behind, and they came to the sea and they didn't see a path forward, and then suddenly Moses, staff in his hand, hit the sea and split it, creating the dry ground. That dry ground that was the path forward, the path toward redemption. We tell you that redemption is not always big, like the splitting of the sea. Sometimes it is so small that it's hard to notice, and I still believe this. But what happens when redemption doesn't come? What happens when you've turned over every stone, have traveled all over the world, have pleaded with every leader, visited the White House, and spoken to the Prime Minister and the President of Israel and the Pope and Elon Musk and the UN and on social media and on the brink of a deal where your child is to be released, and still, your child does not come home alive. Instead, he comes home to be buried at the age of 23. What then? What then is this unfulfilled redemption that you dreamed about and agonized and worked for 329 days? What do you do then when you were the voice of hope, the prophet who used every channel to save innocent souls and it didn't work? On day 67, Rachel, you painted the portrait of the dream of redemption you hoped for. You said, we can keep dividing the world into the paradigm of them versus us, or we can start thinking about those who are willing and those who are not willing. All over the world, you said, we have got to learn to live together, or all over the world, we are going to die together. She wrote a poem for a woman in Gaza she knows. It's called One Tiny Seed, and it goes like this. There is a lullaby that says, your mother will cry 1,000 tears before you grow to be a man. I have cried 1,000,000 tears in the last 67 days. We all have. And I know that way over there, there's another woman who looks just like me. Because we are all so very similar, and she has also been crying. All those tears, a sea of tears, they all taste the same. Can we take them and gather them up, remove the salt and pour them over our desert of despair, and plant one tiny seed, a seed wrapped in fear, trauma, pain, war, and hope, and see what grows? Could it be that this woman so very like me, that she and I could be sitting together in 50 years, laughing without teeth, because we have drunk so much sweet tea together, and now we are so very old, and our faces are creased like worn-out brown paper bags, and our sons have their own grandchildren, and our sons have long lives, one of them without an arm. But who needs two arms anyway? Is it all a dream, a fantasy, a prophecy? One tiny seed. Sometimes redemption is unfulfilled. The son without the arm doesn't come home and live a long life. Sometimes the world doesn't turn out how we would have hoped, and we have to face the daunting, painful, torturous reality of what is, rather than what we would have dreamed it would be. What is the Torah for this moment, where we sit mourning the loss of thousands, where we watch yet another war unfold in the north of Israel, where thousands of people have been driven from their homes, where we cannot see beyond the fog and trauma of this war to take the next step, where these two women in this poem, written on day 67, are still worlds apart. To be honest, I don't know what the Torah is. I've been thinking about it for months. I'm going to try my best, but I don't think this is the full answer. In these moments, we have to speak our truths. We have to be afforded a space for despair and for raw emotion, having a place to shout to the heavens that things should not look this way, that we need something better. And we have to remember that we are not alone. Look around you. You're not alone. It is no accident that immediately in the chaos of loss after burying a loved one, we surround the mourner with community. Community is a place to find love. Community is a place to find comfort, not answers. None of us sitting here have answers. But through connection, we often can tap back into resilience, something that we often can't do by ourselves. After Shiva, John and Rachel got up and committed to keep fighting to bring the hostages home and for a different future. How do we find that strength to turn towards hope? It may not be today. But today, our liturgy includes a piyut, a poem, which says, Hayom Harat Olam. Traditionally translated as today is the birthday of the world, but I have to tell you, I don't think that's a good translation. The Paitan, the poet, took this line originally from the 20th chapter of Jeremiah, where the prophet, in his misery, after trying to turn a wayward people away from idolatry and injustice, but to no avail, by the 20th chapter, he is exhausted, he is miserable, and he says he is cursed. Lo matotani merachem, v'tihi li imi kivri v'rachama, harat olam. He says, because God didn't kill me before my birth, so that my mother might be my grave, and her womb be pregnant with me for all time. Jeremiah is saying here that he is so miserable, that the task is so hard and unbearable that he wishes that his mother had been pregnant with him forever, never to have birthed him at all. The phrase harat olam takes on the meaning of perpetual darkness, being stuck in the womb and never emerging into new life. The image is so painful metaphorically and literally, stuck forever on the precipice of creation and never being birthed into this world. The scholar Sarah Friedland Ben Arza teaches that our Paitan, our poet, takes this verse from Jeremiah and flips its meaning and puts it right there in the machzor. The meaning now is that the world is birthing eternally. Not if only I had never been born, but we are always in the process of forever being born. In other words, there are endless possibilities in our universe, and we have to be ready to meet the moment. I believe in this image, and I believe this image is going to be necessary as we make our way forward in this new reality. We cannot give up on ending this war, on stopping the suffering on all sides, on this one tiny seed that Rachel Goldberg-Poland references. Wrapping that seed to grow means that we will have to make space for all the wreckage of this war. The loss, the torture, the trauma, the sheer numbers of innocent children and civilians killed in Gaza, that territory in shambles, the North under attack in Israel, a generation of American Jews, some who are not here today, who feel in fury by Israel's response to October 7th. We are going to have to find a way to talk to each other, to make room for alternative ways of seeing this difficult reality we are living in and reckoning from all the destruction of this year. This coalition for the future, as Rachel Goldberg-Poland teaches us, is a place where we learn to listen to each other, to hear the pain of the other, not simply, but with complexity, care and commitment, and to bind each other's wounds. A place where nothing is simple, where no identity is erased. A place where human life will be valued more than an ongoing story of war and hatred and torture, because in the end we will realize that there was too much loss, too much sacrificed, and we will be ready as a people to try something different. Though we live here in America, our support will be needed continually for strength, encouragement, for reflecting back what we have learned so profoundly from this year. As Rachel has taught us, no matter what, we have to find gratitude. We have to find gratitude. It is a source of connection and survival. And pain must be felt and heard and ritualized. And there must be a way forward even amidst unfulfilled redemption. It won't be simple, and it is not yet clear how. But our texts tell us again and again and again that we are birthed into a world with everlasting possibilities, and we have been given imagination as a unique human tool. We must use it to find a way forward. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may our hostages come home. Amen. Do you need a song, or can you listen a little bit more? You can listen a little more? Yehuda, where are you? Yehuda is the father of Nimrod, who is still stuck under Gaza. Please listen to his story.